A new Poppy Playtime-esque game called Garten of Banban just released, and it's being accused of stealing from Poppy Playtime developers while also getting tons of hate on social media. So Poppy Playtime, as I'm sure you guys already know, is one of the biggest indie horror games to ever release, gaining insane popularity in its own community and also on platforms like YouTube. However, with this being said, Poppy Playtime has been the prime victim of rip-offs and thieves trying to take from this success ever since its inception back in October of 2021, ranging from merch rip-offs to games that take jabs at achieving the same success the title received during its initial launch, especially in the YouTube community. However, today we're going to be talking about a game that's so shamelessly stolen from Poppy Playtime that I don't even think they could deny that it's basically a rip-off of the game, and the title is called Garten of Banban. If you're wondering what a garden is and what a bonbon is, I have no idea. However, this game is about a random nameless player exploring a kindergarten while also meeting different horror obstacles on the way that turn into life mid-playthrough. And to keep things concise, here's a rundown of the entire game's plot. First, you spawn in the map, then collect a key card to unlock a drone who's meant to be the main gameplay mechanic of the game, similar to the grab pack from Poppy Playtime. Then, using this drone, you press a couple buttons and unlock a new room where you collect a bunch of eggs to unlock a key from this bird named Apila bird in the room. And then after unlocking the key, you go to the ski lift conveniently in the next room that holds the next key. But after collecting the key, Apila then comes to life. So you then have to rush to the end of the room where they literally just die. And then you enter the final room where the main antagonist, I assume, comes after you before the game ends, and that's literally all. Followed, of course, by an advertisement for their sequel to this game that they've apparently been planning since this game's launch. Yeah, I don't really know what I expected. All it is a fetch quest game where you run through a kindergarten when the monsters, or monster, comes to life and tries to eat you. Pretty standard YouTube horror stuff, at least by modern standards. But this concept is just done so poorly when looking at it as a real game and not just a big joke. There's only one thing in this game that I can even remotely call a puzzle, and it's when you're collecting the eggs, there's one egg you have to get by pressing a button in the playground that drops it, and that's literally it. So as you could imagine, it's very surface level. However, the worst part mechanically about this title by far has got to be this drone mechanic that for whatever reason they needed to put into the game. The title would pretty much work the exact same without this stupid drone, but I'm guessing they decided they needed to have a gameplay item because Poppy Playtime did, so they added it anyway. And it's honestly dead serious the worst thing I have ever tried to use in a game. The design of the drone is so badly made because it's just far too slow, and trying to use it, especially in the chase scene with Apila bird, is just entirely impractical. They try to compensate for the slow design by allowing the player to at any point call the drone to your location, but this mechanic is even worse. I'm nearly 20 years old, but trying to use this mechanic in this game genuinely pissed me off. Also, what should be the best part of the game in the chase scene is even more infuriating because they decided to add parkour elements out of absolutely nowhere, which doesn't switch up the gameplay in a good way. It just makes it really annoying to play on your first playthrough because you don't know what you're doing. But although the game is admittedly lazy and poorly made, I don't really care about any of that stuff. If anything, it's so bad at some points it's actually funny. Like, this video isn't me telling you to not play the game. It is a lot of fun, just for the wrong reasons. The real genuine issues I have with this game is that clearly the title is attempting to do exactly what Poppy Playtime did down to a T, but with 1% of the effort. It's literally just a copy at this point trying to profit from another game's success. Like, I know people criticize Poppy Playtime's first chapter anyway of being a short, meaningless tech demo, and as a massive fan of the franchise, I would honestly have to agree with that to an extent. But at least there was a concept being put into place here that was expanded upon in the second chapter later on. Garten of Banban, on the other hand, took as many shortcuts in their game as possible to ensure it had just enough traction to get popular on the internet without doing another ounce of work in the title, or at least that's what is apparent based on what we have. Because hey, if it worked for Poppy Playtime, then it must work for us. A long build up to one climax chase scene, room by room puzzles that progress you through the game, and they even took some of the most basic elements of Poppy down to the little peeking through the doors and collecting the keys from the monster before they mysteriously come to life. It's like the Garten developers genuinely had no trust in developing things for themselves and just decided to bundle up everything Poppy Playtime did fundamentally while filling all the middle parts with the bare minimum of stuff. And it worked. Kind of. See, assuming you've been off Twitter, this game has made massive waves on YouTube with lots of support, getting some of the platform's biggest creators like Darko, Cub Scouts, Fusion Gamer, and many more to play this game. The game's so shameless that they even deemed it as the next Poppy Playtime. They're not even trying anymore. And the reason why this game got so popular despite it being so goofy and poorly received on places like Steam was that it was clearly designed to game the YouTube algorithm and works well with an audience like a lot of other modern horror games that get popular. Because while yes, the game is terrible and not fun to play through at all, on its own, it is genuinely entertaining to watch others play and suffer through themselves. It plays room by room, which like I said is super engaging and features the classic jump scares and cliffhangers that have been getting traction on YouTube since Five Nights at Freddy's in 2014. Not to mention that while very minimal, they've also been developing little bits of lore in anticipation to a second chapter already. Its characters, while weird and out of place, are silly and very memeable even to an audience who doesn't play the game. It honestly seems, like I said, that this game was specifically designed for the YouTube algorithm and was built for the sake of content and to be watched rather than to actually be played as a game. But that's sort of the clear problem with this game. That's exactly what it's doing. It doesn't really feel like it was built with the real intention of ever becoming a final product, but rather was just built to try and get as popular as possible through the internet and then capitalize on it while they can. For example, a lot of people criticize the merch link on their game's loading screen, which I honestly don't care about much, although they definitely could have gone through the effort of making their own merch and website rather than just using free Teespring blanks and templates. But speaking overall, while admittedly this game is just a minor fad that will fade away before the second chapter that's already planned even releases, a lot of people on platforms like Twitter have been expressing the negative state indie horror has been in as of late, where a lot of games such as this one are being purely created to gain popularity from YouTubers and the online community. It's gotten so shameless that these games are literally just copies of one another because why change what worked in the first place? Even game creators like the Bendy and the Ink Machine developer came out around this time discussing the problem with game companies taking from others to stay on the safe route to get popular, rather than putting any personal creative vision into it. And others even conspiracize that games like Garten Of Banban are such bad rips from Poppy Playtime to the point that it could be a satirical piece on the developers and the overall state of indie horror, because if you didn't know, Poppy Playtime is often accused of all of these exact claims taking from titles like Bendy and the Ink Machine, saying that if I can make a game this popular with such low effort, then anybody can. And so while this game is meaningless in the grand scheme of things, honestly, it feels like we could be reaching an end of an era when it comes to horror games and their actual quality, which is obviously very worrying for me. I enjoy indie horror so much because unlike modern AAA titles or anything, there's so much life in these games. And having a relationship from community to these developers is so much easier, which makes these games honestly a lot more enjoyable. However, we are very quickly reaching a point where these blatant ripoffs of games are actually starting to get popular. And in my opinion, it honestly feels very exploitive of the communities that build up the more high quality, genuine titles. But all in all, to be honest, this game is really just a silly meme more than anything, so I'm not going to take it too seriously. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. Check out this video, subscribe, and peace.